So this is the, kind of image I was using to market this class. We are going to be talking about working from home as a doula with littles and keeping your sanity. I'm going to ask you if I can change my branding slightly, so the presentation is going to look different. And this is going to be working as a doula with littles and a quick start guide to working from home for the rest of us. The presentation is going to be divided into two halves. The first half, I'm just going to talk about my experience working from home with littles, like over the last 9 years. And then the last half, we're going to talk specifically about some tips for us doulas. So we kind of cover everything, but the foundations are going to build on each other. So hope that makes sense. And if you don't know me, hi, my name is Victoria Wilson. I'm giving this class. I run Motherwell Doula Service. I'm a mom of 4, which is really crazy. I just had a baby in December. So our babies go from 8 months to 9 years. I've been a doula for the last 8 years, and I've been working from home with littles for 9 years. So that's kind of what brings me to want to share like what I've learned with you guys. But I have to tell you, trust me, I don't always have my sanity. And so anything I'm teaching you tonight is going to be, we're hoping we can just kind of characterize most of the time. But trust me, I'm not having an expectation that we are perfect. But what I do have is experience and I think an approach that works, like I said, over my last 9 years of working at home with little people. So first, let's kind of think about let's just think about broadly working from home. And I said this when people were kind of coming in as I go. We're going to answer questions at the end. I'll have some pauses for questions, but feel free to use the chat if things come up, all that good stuff. Okay, so working from home, right? It would be really terrible if our kids felt like this, right? Like, your mom is on another work call again. Like, why aren't you paying attention to me? I don't know. That's, for me, that would kind of be something I would not love if my kids started to resent me working because I was kind of neglecting them, right? And I didn't have a good balance. And just to kind of preface anything I'm going to be teaching tonight, this is just kind of a personal philosophy. I ran across this quote. I don't know anything about Dr. John Trainer, to be honest with you, so I'm not necessarily endorsing his work, but I've heard this quote. It's sometimes attributed to C.S. Lewis, but it was actually Dr. John Trainer. And he says, children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work. So if you're watching this, I know you want to know how to work from home with littles at home, with children in your life. And I just think this framework is really important as we go forward, that whenever we think about our work, for me, I have to remember my children are the most important work. So how can I do the work that's, I'm called to, maybe professionally, but also preserve that most important work of raising children? And let me give you a little backstory. I want you to learn from my mistakes. Believe it or not, this headshot looks maybe successful, but it was taken in the middle of a very unhealthy time in my life. I had a lot of projects going on. This is when I was kind of a new doula. I was working as a virtual assistant for a company that was one of these, multi 6-figure types of online brands. I was trying to start a business as a doula. I had 2 kids under 2. I was really burning the candle at both ends. I was adopting some pretty unhealthy work practices. But I kind of thought, right, well, I'm working from home, I'm making it happen, I'm living the dream, right? But shortly after this picture was taken, my health started to rapidly deteriorate. I had to go through a lot of fixing of myself and course correcting. And that's kind of where I'm talking to you from today, from knowing what it felt like to kind of feel like I was just fizzing out at the ends to kind of having, again, a better system that I think works. But a good thing from this time in my life was that when I was working for a virtual assistant, I met a friend and a mentor named Carly. And this is me and Carly and I in this photo. We worked for several years with some pretty notable brands in the mom blogger space. It's kind of a unique niche, but that's where we found each other back in the day. And she and I started talking wow, it'd be really cool to teach other moms what we do. How do we get this job? How can we work at home? And so we created a course that lived for a couple years, and the course is now closed, but it was called Moms Work Hard. And it was helping hundreds of women learn how to break into the virtual assisting space. And also remember, I said this is kind of a rough time in life. Carly was actually one of the people through her mentorship and friendship kind of helped pull me out of it. And she was a great mentor to me in learning how to, again, balance, how do you work from home, but also kind of honor the littles that are in your house. And so this is just kind of free advice. Plant yourself around the people who want to see you flourish. I'm still friends with Carly today. And the reason I'm introducing her is because I'm going to use a small portion of that course I told you about, the Moms Work Hard, that we taught. And this is just kind of a visual example to help you identify some working hours in the margins of your day. When you think about your week, think about just Monday through Sunday. What are all of the activities you might do in a week? Here's some examples on the screen. Now think about, okay, well, let's even just say the working days, right? Like, let's just say Monday through Friday. Could I find an hour, just 1 hour in each of those days? Tell me in the chat, or just kind of give me a thumbs up on the screen if you think like that's a reasonable goal. Like, I've got activities, my kids have stuff, I have stuff, but I could find an hour to dedicate to work. See lots of thumbs up coming in. Cool. And right, the question is, okay, if I'm getting something, what do I have to give up? What might you need to give up to find that hour? And I know back when we wrote this, some of these references don't really apply anymore. But I know for me, right now, it would be like, hey, I would have some working time if I didn't scroll on TikTok for an hour on my phone, right? So you're kind of thinking, okay, that's a simple ask. What could I give up to find that hour even? And then also, so if we're thinking about squishing in work, we kind of had some sample schedules for people in this course. Where could you find that time? Maybe if you've got kids in school, maybe you drop them off in the morning, you've got some hours of work when they're at school. And we even, blocked out some days for maybe you just run errands one day and you don't work. Even with some activities at night, you still could have a couple hours to work in the day to focus on your work. And then if you, again, are kind of homeschooling or maybe have young kids at home, how would you structure your day? Maybe it's like school and play in the morning, lunch and chores, and then during that nap time, right? It's kind of work focus. And then again, more activities, whatever fits for you. The reason that we taught this method is because as a virtual assistant, right, you were charging hourly for your services. And so we kind of were starting to realize in our own lives, like, hey, if I just even have 1 hour, if I'm charging, let's say $20 an hour to do some work, that adds up really quickly, right? 100 a week, 400 a month, and that's an extra 5,000 a year. So what if you double that? What if you're working 2 hours and let's say you're making $40 every time you work 2 hours? That doubles up even quicker, 200 to 800 to about an extra 10,000 a year. And I don't know about you, but I would never say no to an extra $10,000 a year. And for us, it was just really helpful to see, hey, that's doable, right? This is just 2 hours of work. And again, in this virtual assisting course where we're saying you're charging somebody to do a basic service for them, that's a doable goal and it can make a big impact. So again, this is not going to be a class on being a virtual assistant, but some examples of what we did, what we helped, these other of our students do was running customer care, social media, being a copywriter, creating visual design. They're really basic things you could do that could be work from home and make an impact. And I will say, there's a lot of potential if you have your own business, which I'm guessing most of you do, if you're a working doula as well. Maybe if you're not quite sure where to start, starting out as a virtual assistant might be helpful. Sometimes it can help you start learning how to work from home under someone else's structure. So again, think through, okay, if I carved out a work week, where would my hours be? How much would I charge those hours? And then you can just start playing with the idea of, if I work, I get this money, and that can just start exercising that muscle for you. But let's think about how to actually get the work done, right? Which is kind of, I'm guessing, why you guys are here. Again, so I kind of like to, my guiding principle is that the children that I have in my home, that's the greatest work. That's, if we're going to think about it in those terms, right? That's the greatest work I could produce, is my children. So, but also I am a doula, I am a creator. I have been a writer. The work that I do as well is also important. It's an important part of me and I want to make time for that. So there's sort of these two places I want to spend my time: working with my children or working in the marketplace, we'll call it. So you're always deciding how to spend your time. And I know for me, I don't ever want to pursue that marketplace work at the expense of my children. And again, this is coming from a place of, I did that. I did go really hard and work really hard and threw myself into my work. And I saw my children suffering, I saw myself suffering, and I had to step back, regroup, and then come back stronger. So this is kind of me speaking from personal experience. It doesn't work well. It works better when you have some good balance and boundaries. is anybody familiar with this idea of a love tank? You can tell me again, thumbs up or down. Yeah. So if you don't know, the love tank is just an idea that kind of a marriage, someone in like the marriage kind of counseling space came up with. And he says that for your spouse or your partner, whoever, to feel loved by you, you want to kind of do things for them in a way they understand love, right? So if they really like gifts, you might be prioritizing, how can I show you gifts that I love you, or physical affection or time, whatever it is. But the idea is a relationship will be strong if you're putting into that love tank. So I want to kind of take that concept and think about your children's love tank. Um, and I thought you may have seen this if you're kind of, again, in like the mom parenting spaces, you may have seen this graphic go around. But again, I don't know anything, disclaimer about Lawrence Cohen, but I thought this is a great thought, that children don't say, I've had a hard day, can we talk? They say, will you play with me? And to me, that just sort of means that, okay, for children, attention, play, engagement equals love. And as a parent, your child's full love tank is actually the ticket to your ability to work from home. And I could show you what I mean, because how often have you been sitting down to work? I know I have, and this is how you feel because the kids are running up and needing something from you, and it feels kind of crazy and impossible. I have completely been there. And when I have been there in the past, I start realizing, oh, I have been like, let's say when I was working on this class this week, I have been really focused on this class and I haven't just taken time to be with you. So you know what? Like on Tuesday, I said, I'm going to put my class work away. Those slides will get done. I need to go spend some investment time in my children so that they're feeling full of love, so that they'll give me the time I need to work on, this presentation. The question is sort of, how can you give your best to your children, your work, and yourself? Because we don't want any of those things to suffer if you're going to have like a good, I don't really like saying work-life balance. I prefer the term work-life blend, because balance makes it sound like it's always equal. And sometimes we work more, right? And sometimes our family or personal things might demand more of our time. We're just looking for a good blend where everybody feels like their needs are being met. So my tip for how do you get that time, how can you make sure your kids have your full attention, their love tanks full, is to use the buddy system. And this means you really prioritize, okay, when I'm working, I'm working. And when I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. And I think a great way to do this is childcare. And the doula portion, like in the second half of this talk, I'll talk specifically about how I handle that on-call childcare. But here are just a few ideas that have worked for me over the years or have worked for people that I know. You might alternate working hours with your partner if you have one, maybe they work in the day and you work at night, or vice versa. Maybe you are using nights and naps, but again, I would caution some of the time, I don't want you using every single night and nap, because you need some rest and restoration too for yourself. But maybe there's 3 nap times a week or quiet times a week your kids do that you choose to work. You can swap childcare with another parent. Maybe there's somebody else in your town who, they don't even have to have a business. Maybe it's just like a stay-at-home parent who just wants some free time, right? Maybe you guys work out a swap where, hey, one day your kids come to my house, the other day my kids go to your house. Then each of you have a free day or a couple hours to do whatever you want. You could invest in childcare, right? I know this may not be an option for everybody, but if it is, highly recommend investing in good quality childcare for your children. Maybe a family or a friend will gift you childcare, and then maybe your work might end up being more cyclical. Like let's say the summer you have like 3 week-long summer camps your kids could do, and you use cycles like that to get a lot done for your business. Those are just a few ideas. But my number one hack for working at home, let's say you're alone with kids, is explorations in digital media. I'm just kidding, sort of. Let me explain, because I know screen time can kind of be a hot topic. I will say, I have found selective screen time can be an incredibly valuable tool. And in our house, the way I set it up is that we are co-working. So again, if my kids love tanks, to use that expression, are full, like I've spent time with them, we've done the chores and the play in the morning or whatever. When it's the quiet time, because most of my kids aren't napping anymore, but when I say, okay, it's been lunch, I really need to get something done for work, we're going to go have an hour and a half of work time, co-working time, or screen time, whatever you want to call it. And they'll have their tablets and I'll have my computer, and we'll just sit on the couch together. And I can get, you won't believe the things I can get done in an hour and a half, if my kids have a screen. And I say this because I know for some families, screen time wouldn't be appropriate, but for us, I really like it as a way of just mirroring, like you're on a screen, I'm on a screen, we set our timer, and then when the timer is done, the screens are away and we're back together again. It's a joke. And I know sometimes still when you're trying to get work done, it still might look like this at home. But I think that, I think that it's okay to kind of look at how can I use what's around me and what's natural and build some routines into that. And it can still kind of bring you around your kids that they're happy and occupied and you can get some work done. Again, I kind of like this quote as well: wherever you are, be all there. Just when you're working, and when you're playing, you're playing. And so I can't lie to you that screen time is one of the big ways I am able to work from home with kids selectively. And again, here's our kind of our rules for it. We set expectations for behavior when I'm working and enforce consequences if you're not using screen time. Sometimes if we have a period where we're not using screens, it might be like, okay, guys, you're going to go play quietly with a craft or Play-Doh or whatever in this one space, and mom's going to work, and then we'll be done in an hour. Visual timers I find are really helpful in sticking to that time. And again, if kids are like run off, start doing something crazy while you're working, then okay, well, the consequence for that is whatever would be appropriate for your family. You get 10 minutes less of screen time today, or what, or you get it taken away, or whatever you guys use. Again, I found special toys and activities for working time has been really valuable. So maybe it's like when you get Christmas or birthday toys, some stuff. So I feel like grandparents are like always giving stuff that's like really big and involved, or like, here's a giant, big, messy craft they can do. Save those things for times like this when you're like, I need to get some work done from home. Here's our work time. You guys go at it and have fun. Then you can pick up after work. And again, just that thought of wherever you are, be all there, be all in when you work. And then when you're done, you're done. A final kind of tip I have for working at home with littles in this first portion that's kind of generally laying this foundation is that I think done for you can be better than do it yourself. So you can kind of ask, again, what kind of trade-offs might you make for more working hours, whether that's you're running your own business or you're working for someone else's business. You can also ask it, where are you spending time and effort when you could be working on your business? Again, assuming most of us are doulas and we're running our own birth business somehow. These are some areas in our life over the years we've like had things done for us instead of doing it ourselves: house cleaning, meal planning, prep, lawn service, grocery shopping or delivery, simple errands. Some of these might be paid, some of these might be a free or barter option, depending on like what your situation is and who you know. Again, you might go in with some other people in your area who might want to swap out services. But I have never regretted, investing in any of these things to make it done for me so that I don't have to worry about that. I can just, be home with my kids if that's what my season of life has me doing, and then working as well when I need to work. You can kind of think of it just in life, in business. There's two categories really. There's things only you can do, and then things others can do for you. So all you can do is be a parent to your child or children and run your own business. Do your work. You can do your work and you can parent your children. What can other people do for you? Literally everything outside of those two categories. And ultimately, when you kind of involve your children in your work, I think that that's impactful for them. This is my daughter pretending to be a midwife because, she sees a lot of midwives in her life with me being a doula. And I think it's so cool and meaningful for them to start absorbing what we do. And again, you can even build some healthy habits and routines for them with regard to work if you just have some intentionality behind it. So we're at the halfway point. How I'm kind of a fast talker and I wanted to get through the basics so we can spend some more time on the being a doula. Does anybody have any questions right now? And have there been any like aha moments of like, oh, I didn't think about it that way, or that's a good tip I might try? You're welcome to unmute and share those, or put them in the chat and I'll read them out loud. I'd love to hear. Doing great, fist bump. Thank you. It just says iPhone, but I appreciate that. Good info. Thank you. Awesome. Cool. any ahas or like, oh yeah, I might try that, or I didn't think about it doing it this way. I'm wondering, I'm also like the person who's afraid side of me is like, who is judging me for saying use screen time? But again, I shared with you how I do it. I don't want to lie that that's one of the number one ways I get things done, but with some good boundaries. I'm wondering if anybody is like, I would never use screen time, or like, I totally use screen time. Brogan says, I love the work-life blend instead of work-life balance. Yeah, when I first heard that, I love that too. I think it's really apt. Carrie says, how do you navigate the uncertainty of births at random times? Yes, we're going to talk about that in this next section. We'll kind of go ahead and move on to it, and then maybe we can chat more at the end. Oh, hold on one second. Yes, we'll definitely talk about how do you do kind of that on-call and predictable childcare. But before we go to the working as a doula, I invited, quote, air quotes, 2 doulas who I know and love to give me their tips for working at home with littles. So the first is Darcy. She's known as Doula Darcy. She is my business coach currently. I really love and respect her. And so let's listen to her tips for us. Victoria from the future jumping in to say that I had some tech issues. So I am just going to put the actual videos here in the presentation, but in the rest of the class, if you hear me referencing tech issues, I couldn't get the sound to work. So that's what happened, but you're about to watch those videos right now.
Hello, Doula Darcy here. My tip for working at home when you have little children is to figure out what time of day your brain is functioning at its highest level, i.e. like when you get the most work done. Like, are you a morning person or are you a night owl? And once you figure that out, talk to your partner or hire a babysitter, do whatever you need to do to give yourself 2 hours or however much you can in that window of time. So for instance, I'm a super morning person. We made a deal with my husband where he would deal with the kids in the morning if they woke up while I was working, and I just worked for 2 hours in the morning, and I swear I got more done than I did back in my corporate career, on an 8-hour day. So work to your strengths, make a deal with your partner or hire the help you need to get the support you need to get the work done.
I'm really sad you can't hear these. I will definitely make them available elsewhere. And then Adriana Lozada, I know we were talking about someone who knows her.
Hello, mighty one. Hello, it's Adriana Lozada here. And when Victoria said she was doing this class on how to work with little ones, I thought, oh my God, what a great idea, because working with littles is hard. The only tips or takeaways that I have for you is try to chunk your work as much as possible. So see if you can get things done in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, break it up so that feels like wins, that you actually got something done. Then another option or another suggestion is to batch things as much as possible. And if you can afford it, or even if you can't, like join forces with a friend and then make sure you can carve out a few hours a week, maybe during one morning or an afternoon, somewhere where you can get a big chunk of time to actually get some work done for those bigger projects. All right, best of luck.
But we will move forward. I'm sorry, that's embarrassing, but it's all good, friends. I will get those to you. Okay, and like I said, I don't want to I just got Adriana's video, so I don't want to like mischaracterize what she said. I haven't heard it over as many times as I had Darcy's, but I will send those to you guys. So let's talk about how do you work as a doula. This is kind of the meat of the presentation here. And again, right, we all know this feeling. Your mom is at a marathon birth. Again, all of our kids, if you've been a doula for more than like a hot second, have probably felt this way, and that's part of it. So I wonder, tell me with like a nod or a yes or a thumbs up, as a doula, do you feel torn between these two sides? Right, we just spent all this time thinking about our kids, and like if you have children, that's kind of the goal, is raising them up well, and also doing the things that your work and things that fill you up and give you life, and you bring light to the world in that. But do you feel torn between these two jobs? I see lots of thumbs up. Yeah, for sure. I definitely relate to that. And again, it's sort of this idea of like, there is a lot at stake. You know, our kids are really high priorities, clients are high priorities, pregnancy and birth, that's a high, and postpartum is a high impact period of time. In our family, we have found it's true that you've got to give a lot to get a lot. So for us, it's just made sense to me that if I'm asking my children and my family to be on board with the intense and unpredictable life of a doula, meaning I want to get a lot, like I want to get their buy-in for that, then I want to protect my time so that I can give them my best when we're together. I want to give a lot if I'm asking them to get a lot. So yeah, I think that you have to give a lot of your presence to get a lot of time. So if you want someone's time and attention and energy, you need to be giving them your presence, as often as possible. So here are some of the ways that I do that as a doula, and I'm going to go into some specific FAQs in a second. But post-birth mommy times or special outings. It's funny. I was actually at a birth, at 3:30 a.m. this morning. I had my clients gave birth. So when I came home, got the kids to school, my husband was walking them out the door for school, and I got home with the baby. And after we woke up from our little crash nap, I took, even though it was just the 8-month-old, it's like, hey, you get mommy time. I'm back from a birth. So I have done that with all my girls. I have 4 girls. We just always do that. If it's like the next day after I recover, it's like, mom was gone. Thank you for letting me go take care of those clients. What do you guys want to go do? Is it ice cream? Is it park? Like, make kind of a big special day. This is, like, again, I think one that we don't often think about, but we don't overload our family schedule for a lot of reasons. One is that, right, it's any appointment you have on the calendar, you've got to have a backup plan. It's got to be able to be canceled, all sorts of things when you're working on call. So we just limit that as a family. We have other reasons we do that as well, but we just don't overload the schedule. We have some limited responsibilities. We really take care to give our yeses to the most important thing. And then we just kind of don't worry about it. When I just got the flyer in our mailbox for sign your kids up for Girl Scouts, soccer tryouts are coming up. We're like, no, that doesn't work for our family. It sounds like fun, but we can't say yes to all of that because we say yes to this, on-call lifestyle right now. I say no as a doula business owner to most non-client activities. A few of my local friends are here too, and so they will know it's hard sometimes when there's like the birth meetup or the birth and baby fair you want to go to, or the class or the training. The reality is I just say no to a lot of things, and that's because I know that at my busiest I was going to 4 births a month. I knew that there was going to be 4 times this month. They may not see me for who knows how long. And just that general, you guys know what it's like to be on call. It just was easier to say, you know what, I'm going to say no so that I know my family's got me and I've got some time to rest and recoup before I go to the next client. We just say no to a lot. I save non-urgent work calls for office hours. I just kind of have office hours as a doula that I either do client meetings or answer emails. And I try really hard. Again, I'm not perfect. I have my sanity most of the time, not all the time, but I try really hard and intentional to just not take work calls whenever, because it's kind of like if I'm in the grocery store with the kids or whatever, I don't want to be like talking on the phone, trying to manage and juggle everything. It's just like, no, that can wait for my work time. And again, this is kind of a hand-in-hand personal phone time use in front of the kids. I was realizing that my kids didn't know the difference between like, when am I working and when am I just having fun on my phone. And again, right, we probably all could use our phones less. So it's just kind of good habit to get into of I try not to do that in front of them. Because I don't want them to think that anytime I'm on the phone, I'm working. Because that's what they were thinking. Like, you work all the time, when really it's like, I was just kind of like watching a baking, video on YouTube or whatever. I don't want them to think it's just always work. So I try to differentiate for them when I'm working and when I'm not. And then this is a simple one, but there's a lot of research, believe it or not, on the power of just eating meals together as a family. There's even some like government initiatives to get families to just eat together, because it can be really healthy for children growing up. So again, that kind of falls in line with that. We don't overload our schedule. That's because we prioritize trying to get at least like 3 meals a week together as a family. And again, knowing that some of those I might be gone, and it might be like pizza takeout or whatever when mom was at a birth. But I like knowing that we've got some like anchor points in the week that we're all going to meet together, and meals are one of those. So these are some specific questions. When I was preparing this talk, I asked like, what do you guys want to know? Oops. And these were the biggest questions everyone has, you know. So we'll go through these point by point, and I'll kind of let you know how I do it. And then or how I or other people I know do it. So childcare, that was the question. Oh, I missed your name, but I wish I could find it. Oh yeah, Carrie was asking, Carrie, you were asking about childcare and being a doula. This is again like probably one of the hardest aspects of being a doula with small children. I personally think childcare is like one of the hardest parts about parenting in general, right? That idea that you're kind of always on call, as it were, for the responsibility and well-being of this little person who's in your life, you know, these little humans you're raising, tiny humans. That's stressful that you can't always just guarantee someone else can do that job for you. So again, a few of these principles, your children are your greatest work, but then also your clients are paying for the best service you can deliver. So childcare, when you have like childcare, select childcare, I'm calling select childcare like someone else is dedicated to be on with the kids. I save my client work for that, you know, save it for when I'm with clients so I can be all in with clients, whether that's like client meetings or again, going to a birth. And I would say for that on call, thinking about how to manage childcare on call, dependable, diverse systems have been really key for me in my career. And sometimes it can feel like this, trying to figure out where are the kids going to go if someone goes into labor at what time of day. But here's like a real life picture. Obviously, these are not details, but this is literally a calendar I've had in my life working as a doula. I have a list of people and kind of the days they're available and their numbers. So I know, okay, clients, you know, goes into labor Tuesday at 5 a.m. Who's with the kids. I kind of know my people that are my overnight people, my day people, who can drive kids, you know, do I need a little car seat? Does that person not have a car seat? I just kind of know that. And at one point, I don't have it currently because I'm not as busy as I once was. But at one point, I literally had this on our refrigerator as like a calendar. So my partner and my husband would know, anybody else, if it was like we're into a situation where, like, let's say my husband had a non-negotiable he couldn't miss, and I was at a birth, and the person watching the kids needed to hand off to somebody else. It was just all on a document. I shared it with all of them. I can be a little type A about ensuring that I get to births. And this is one of the examples of why it's like a master list, you know, but this has been helpful. And again, some of those tips in the first segment of like, how do you even get childcare? Maybe it is someone you're paying to be available. Maybe it is a family or friend who would just watch your kids for free because you watch their kids for free and it's like an equal, you know, even trade. I would just say, just be aware of like, are you always asking one person to drop everything? Or are you kind of sharing the love? And if you are always asking one person, maybe consider, you know, like what's asking them what's fair compensation or just thanks, you know, whatever. Some people really will do it out of the goodness of their heart. But I've also found I was starting to like abuse in the past, like one particular person because they were always available. And it's like, okay, that's not fair. I don't want to abuse your availability. I want to like be equitable. And also I want to say, hey, I really appreciate you doing this. How can I thank you? It can be as simple as that, not assuming, just asking, because this is a huge ask for people in your life to be available. But keeping it organized, keeping it clear. I asked the friend who watches my baby right now. I have 2 days a week that you know, we pay her to watch my daughter while the big kids are in school. Those are my work days, and she's also one of my kind of on-call babysitters. I asked her what was the most useful, and she just said communication. You know, from her point of view, she's like, the more you can communicate and tell me like what's ahead. I'm even pretty obnoxious about if a client tells me like, I think I'm having contractions. I don't really know. Could be prodromal labor. I'm still starting to contact at least somebody for childcare because I know my husband has to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And if we go into labor, if I go in overnight for some reason, I don't want to be left without a plan. So just start as much early intervention as you can. And just good communication seems to be a good key for childcare. Working full time and being a doula. I have done this as well. Where my partner and my husband was home and I was working full time and being a doula. And I found that setting expectations with your employer and your team is really huge, and knowing like what are the non-negotiables for all parties in that. So you might have a job that's like pretty chill and kind of like, hey, yeah, work whenever, it's fine. Or you might have a job that's very rigid about when you clock in and when you clock out. And, you have to be here for a team meeting on Thursdays, whatever it is. Just understand what's my non-negotiables that I can't miss, and then set your client expectations and your doula practice around that. I would, when you take off time for a birth, ask your employer, is this PTO or is this flex? Can I make the work up later? Or am I counting against like some hours I have? That was a really helpful conversation for me to like understand having backups for everything, not just our doula job, but the desk job as well. That's really critical, especially if your job is high impact. And again, I found that just expectation setting was really helpful with my employer and the team to say, hey, I'm a doula. I would tell them I've got 2 people due this month. These are our big deadlines and projects. I'm going to aim to have all of that done before, a week before it's due. And just kind of that sort of thing, planning expectations and setup. I'll also say, if you happen to have a job that's not as flexible, that's a little more rigid, I would highly recommend you just biding your time and waiting until you have a really good like doula partner. That might be a really great option for you. I've seen some doulas who worked full-time jobs and just kind of told clients like, if you go into labor, in my work day, I won't be there. And I just feel like that's just not a great precedent to set, personally. So I would say if you work full time, have a demanding job, that might be the golden ticket for you, is to find a doula partner and juggle when do you go into a birth with a partner. Or I know I've got some postpartum doulas here today. Maybe it's like you do postpartum doula work and overnight or something like that that's more schedulable. Another question I got, right, is working full time and being a doula and having little kids. That's kind of a loaded deck. And I would say just if you have a full-time job and you have children and you want to be a doula, I would seriously evaluate your support systems and your life management systems. I think a lot of these tips in the presentation could help you, especially if you're a person who's like got your ducks in a row, not controlling in the sense of you want to be in charge of like, I can manage my whole life, but just you have a good system and you can manage your stuff because right, we can't control life, but you can have a plan for things. That might be great for you. But I think it's also worth saying for some people at some stages, doula work is not the right type of work for you. The birth field is really wide. There's a lot of stuff you can do. I myself had to take off some time as a doula actually during, again, that season I mentioned where I was really unhealthy with my work life balance blend. It wasn't balanced at all or blended well at all. It was just a big mess. And I had to take time off because I realized, right now is not the time for me to be a working doula going into person to births. I need to take a step back. That could be true for you if you have a full-time job and littles and you want to be a doula. You might have to phase into that spot where you want to be. Or again, you might just need to wait and see, do I need to partner up with somebody? Do I need to find another job and kind of ease into doula work? I just think it's worth saying that being a birth doula is if that's your calling, that's one of the best jobs you can do. And also it may not be the right time in life to do that. And that's okay. That's a question I have to ask myself a lot. And I think we need to talk more about that because there's always a cost to something you do. How many clients do I take at working as a doula? I kind of broke it down here in these categories. When being a certified doula was my only job responsibility, I booked an average of 4 clients a month. And that was when I had a 2-year period where being a doula was my full-time job. I went to births full-time. My partner was home with the kids. He kind of had a part-time job. He worked in the margins, but I was like the breadwinner with our doula business. That was 4 a month for me, which for my area was pretty busy. It's kind of a rural area. I think in bigger cities, I've seen some doulas say they take as many as like 8 to 10 clients a month. So it just depends. When being a certified doula was my additional job responsibility, I took about 1 client every 3 months. And then when I was a full-time stay-at-home parent and ran my practice in the margins, I booked an average of 1 to 2 clients for 3 to 4 months out of the year. So that's just for me. I would love to hear in the comments as I keep going. If you're currently working as a doula, I'd love to know. I'm always so interested. Like, how many clients do you take? And then kind of finally, I got a lot of questions about breastfeeding and working as a doula. And really, when I was thinking about how to answer this, the biggest thing I could say is that if you are working as a doula, I'm hoping that you're already taking some periodic breaks in your support. Um, with your breastfeeding, that's a pumping break. You know, and my friend who is a great friend of, she has kids, we have kids kind of similarly aged. You know, she's a good friend and mentor, or just a cheerleader for my business. She said, I think taking a break to pump is a beautiful modeling of setting boundaries to protect breastfeeding. You know, and I think she's right that you're taking a break in birth is so helpful. I already was learned to do that early on, learned breaks were important. And then when you're breastfeeding, just bring your pump when you go take a break. Hands-free and portable pumps have come a really long way. I was talking with Renee, who's a friend locally, like a local doula. She was telling me about her pump setup she rigged back, you know, with a plug-in pump. But even now realizing like, you know, realizing when I started breastfeeding 9 years ago, we didn't have portable pumps, you know, so that's kind of novel difference now. You might talk with clients, is it appropriate for you to wear pumps like while you're supporting them? Maybe it just depends on what's happening. And I think as far as milk storage, most staff have been really glad to get you ice and basins to keep milk cold. At the very least, I've been given like access to the nurse's staff freezer to put my milk in. So just ask. I also think that it's a point I didn't put on here, but I should have. And so I'll say here, say now, is that obviously if you're breastfeeding, you're doing the night feedings, whoever's caring for your baby at night, that could be a burden. You know, that's a big thing when the breastfeeder isn't there. So I would just say, again, count that into how many clients do I take? What are my expectations? How does my baby sleep? You know, are we co-sleeping or not? Like that sort of thing, that might change how you work as a doula, at least in the sense of like, how many do you take? So let me kind of go back. I want to see what some of you guys said about how many clients you take. 1 to 2 a month, most of the year. Doula, Darcy is here, my business coach. We had the video from her earlier. Darcy, I'll tell you later about this, but we couldn't hear it because I did something wrong, but I'm going to send it out to people. When my kids are little, I took 2 to 3 postpartum doula clients a month. Sounds reasonable. Lacey says, I have no backup, stay-at-home mom who homeschools. And I have, oh, 1 second. And I have a part-time job. I try to take 2 clients a month. Emily says her goal is 2 to 3 a month. Another homeschooler says, during the school year, I only take 1 to 2 births a month. I had 4 last month in summer break, and it was a bit much with 7 kids. Yeah, that's a lot, but I work with 14 other doulas, so we only do 12-hour shifts and have backups. Yeah, I think that's really great. Melanie takes 4 a year because she's also an acupuncturist and wants to focus on client care. Yeah, so I think that's really wonderful, you know, to kind of see it can look a lot of different ways. And again, for some people, at some stages in life, it's going to be appropriate to say, hey, being a doula is not, it's not the right time right now. But that doesn't mean forever. It just means evaluate. Again, I told you my philosophy of the children are kind of the most important work. And so how do I give them the most? Because I'm asking them to give me a lot. And speaking of breastfeeding and pumping, this a birth that just happened this summer. This was my 100th doula baby that was born. That's my pump bag. That's me eating some good real food for my break. I've got some pumps on. And then my family had to come to the hospital because our milk stash ran out at home. So my husband had to come be like the milk fairy and come drive up and get the milk I had pumped and go back. And it was a whole thing. I don't pump a lot of milk because my baby like breastfeeds all the time. And so I had to go get donor milk just for the future. Like after this experience, I was like, you know, I figured out someone who had some donor milk I could keep stocked because I just don't produce a whole lot when I'm away from my baby. And thankfully after this, you know, I was just praying like, I really hope this baby is born soon. And thankfully it was, and I got to go home. But sometimes that happens again. So you're asking a lot. That was a lot to ask somebody to come drive, you know, an hour both ways up the interstate to get a couple ounces of milk and then bring it home so they would have enough milk for overnight, and then me, you know, kind of coordinate the donor milk situation. So you're asking a lot. Hope you give a lot to your family if you're asking them to do a lot. Ultimately, I think this really matters. Our kids matter, your doula work matters, and it is possible to do it all together. And kind of my final tip is to work smarter not harder. And again, I really like this idea of done for you versus do it yourself. I told you some of the ways we do that in our family, like hiring, house cleaning for different periods of time, the grocery, like ordering groceries online. I don't go to the grocery store anymore because I just click buttons when I'm home, probably nursing my baby, and I can order groceries that way. So how many ways can you hack your life and get something done for you? I know for me, when I was, when I've been home with 4 kids, and I realized I really need just good processes to save my time and energy. A good process is sort of like the ultimate life hack. It can save you time, keep you organized, and eliminates the need for planning and prep beforehand, which we don't always have time to do when we're kind of juggling the kids somewhere to go to a client meeting. And so if you don't already know about this resource from me, I wanted to introduce you to the Birth Doula Client Workbook. It's something that I've created to help ease the mental load of being a doula, because it is just a done for you system. It's a plug and play plan for prenatal appointments, and it gives you the freedom to spend your time focusing on client needs without sacrificing what you need them to know. I love this workbook, and other doulas have been loving it too. I think it's in the hands of over 100 doulas now. It's a Canva template, and it's also a PDF. So you can just copy this right into your own Canva account, customize and change it, and then it's ready to go for appointments. And you can also just download it as is and just send that to clients. I've gotten some really kind feedback from clients, partners, and doulas who've used the workbook. And again, what's the beauty of a done for you system is that you don't have to think about it. It's just done. That part of your business is solved. And you can just move forward, focusing your time on the work. And then that won't take you as much time. So you can spend more time with the kids or errands or, jogging, whatever it is you want to do with your time. You're not burning the candle at both ends. And so I think, you've noticed I like using pictures of my kids in these presentations. Obviously, this would be you on the left without a workbook or just a good process in your business. You'd be so sad. But then with a workbook or with good processes in your business, you'd be so happy, like cute little Nora here. And just remember, like I said, my story, that I kind of went from a girl who kind of looked successful on the outside, but was really burning out on the inside because I was drowning with all the pressure and responsibilities. But then I think I'm coming into a better place again. I always use that term work-life blend, because I think balance is kind of a myth, but it's better. It's blended better. There's better boundaries, better expectations, and better processes like the workbook that just kind of give me more peace and clarity. And most of the time, my sanity. And I think that that can be true for you too in your doula business. And so that was our class. I'm going to stop sharing. I'd love to connect with you, and you guys will get these slides in your email, but I'd love to stop sharing. And if anybody wants to unmute, ask questions, all sorts of things, that would be great. I see. Oh yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you. Carissa said she bought the workbook today and it's beautiful. Thank you so much. Gonna go back through here. Someone had feedback about breastfeeding or, milk expression. Something I keep on hand when the hospital doesn't allow me to put milk in the fridge is an instant ice pack. They are used for injury, but it works to keep milk cold for a few hours, and it's cheap. Yeah, that is really great. I have done that. I have done like little ice packs. I've done a big old Sonic cup of ice and just stuck my milk down in there around the ice and just kind of refresh the ice. That works really well. Yes. Okay. How does the workbook help with your prenatal meetings? It helps because it gives you just an outline for what you're going to cover in the meetings, and it gives you the ability to assign things for homework. So there's pages you could cover just as part of your routine sessions with people. And you can also, if you have meetings like I do sometimes where the client really wants to go deep into one particular thing they're really worried about, you can say, hey, we can talk about this now, and then kind of for homework you might do XYZ pages and we'll regroup and talk again later. And for me, when I put this workbook together, it was just instantly freed up so much of my time, because instead of scrambling to put a folder together or make sure I emailed all the handouts, I could just grab the workbook and walk out the door, and I was ready to go. And I have other videos. I'll send you replay it within the replay email. I'll send you more videos of how I use the workbook in my practice. Like I email or I mail the workbook and some other goodies to clients when they sign with me, just make it part of the whole process. And I like that it's always there. It's standardized and it's cohesive, it's together, and I just don't have to think about it. I kind of, all my talking points, all my cues are just in a workbook. Someone else says, what is your top tip for someone interested in becoming a doula, but currently a full-time stay-at-home mom to a 1-year-old? Oh, congratulations on the 1-year-old. You made it a year of being a parent. I think my tip is, again, to really consider, and we don't talk about this enough, like in the birth world, but really consider, first of all, do I want to be a doula or do I want to work in birth? Because those are two different things. Being a doula is right. It's a very demanding, it's kind of high impact, high stress. There's high stakes, in the sense of you have to go to work right when you get called. And if you miss it, you might be losing that income because you're paying it back up or you're refunding a fee and whatnot. But do you just like birth? So if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're 1-year-old, you might be thinking like, okay, well, I don't know what I want. Maybe, you can take a doula training, but maybe also take a childbirth educator training or info session and just start seeing, like, should I start with something that has a schedule and is predictable and then ease into doula work? Or if you want to become a doula, I also have some resources I can send you in a replay email of like how to get started being a doula. But I think just easing in is the most like helpful tip I can give you, because when you run all in and you set up a whole business before you even know if this work is for you, that can kind of be like really overwhelming, especially if I'm kind of sensing in your question, there's sort of a hesitancy of like, well, he's one, like, is this the right time? Just feel it out. And again, distinguish, do I want to be a doula or do I want to work in birth? And also you can kind of look in your area. There's so many ways to work as a doula. Like you might have a hospital program. You might have an agency in your area you could join in, like find someone who's maybe already has a platform business set up for you to do the work in. That would also be a tip. Yes. So someone's asking, can I show a workbook? Yes, I'll show you a workbook. And let me answer to, did I work as a doula when pregnant? If yes, up to what month? Leah, that would have been another good point to answer. I did work during my pregnancy, this last pregnancy as a doula, and I worked up until 3 weeks before I had my baby, 2 weeks before I had a baby, maybe. It could have been more like 3. And that was pretty stressful. I can't lie. That was physically really demanding. It was my busier season. I was pregnant the kind of second year that I worked full time as a doula. So I was working 4 clients a month for a year for most of my pregnancy. And it was very difficult. So I did work up into 2 to 3 weeks for my due date. I would not necessarily recommend that if you can help it. But for us, that was sort of our livelihood. This was a surprise pregnancy. And so we had to kind of put some structures in place to replace that income, right? I couldn't just quit my job, and I didn't want to quit on the clients because I was pregnant and I didn't plan on being pregnant. But I did work up until then. And sometimes you can see midwives or nurses also being pregnant and working up until, I think the biggest tip I would have is whatever time feels right to you, or whatever time you can afford, stop, give yourself as much wiggle room as possible, but also take really good care of your body. Like I did increase my doula fee to cover things like I got a craniosacral massage every month. Again, some of these like done for you versus do it yourself. I ordered a lot of meals that were just really good, healthy food when I was at a birth, because I'm pregnant, right? So I'm not going to be surviving on like Airheads and Uncrustables or whatever I had in my bag. I want good, healthy food for me and my baby. So you just have to, if your machine, if a body is a machine and the machine is pregnant, you got to really take extra good care of the machine. Darcy is saying, can I see a workbook? I'm going to have some more photos of these coming out soon if you follow me, but this is how I get my workbooks printed. Again, the big benefit to this workbook is that it's a Canva template, and you can just, when you buy it, you have instant access. It opens up in your Canva account and you can create it all your own. But some people choose to get it printed out. We have options for printing them for you, or you can, use your own printer. But these are about 40 pages right now, and it just walks through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Again, I've created it so that they're prompts to the clients. Like you could assign it for homework, they come to the meeting having already done, or you might discuss it in the meeting, but it's very systematic and it really guides people through thinking about their birth plan, thinking about just what's my communication plan in labor, what interventions might be available or might be popular in my hospital. I need to know how to navigate. How do I talk to the staff? There's a portion where you can teach them kind of labor positions and comfort measures they might be using, and then planning for postpartum. The workbooks, and I'll share a link here in the comments. The workbooks are $45, just $45 right now for the template. And again, you get a PDF and a Canva link. If you want to buy, print out workbooks yourself, if you're an existing customer, you can get those details from us too, but you need to be a paying customer first of the workbook, just because, it'll make more sense of like, how do you go through the printing process, either on your own or through us. And right now they're $45. In a few months, the workbook price is going to be going up because I'm planning several updates to it. So currently it's $45. If you're thinking about it, between now and like October would definitely be the time to buy it, because after October, the price is going to go up. So thank you for asking that. I love Renee is saying, I have a friend who's an L&D nurse. She worked her shift and then admitted herself in labor and had a baby. Yeah, I've heard so many stories like that. And it's like, I don't really want to be that person. I want some more, again, I want a little more margin. I want to like take care of myself and my kids and take care of my clients. Right, the whole oxygen mask first. Tips for managing new mom anxiety when leaving a 7-month-old breastfeeding co-sleeping baby. Aw, he barely lasts a few minutes without me. I have 2 births in December, already freaking out. Well, hugs to you, Shelby, because I was just there. I went back to work with my co-sleeping breastfeeding baby in May. And yeah, it's kind of tricky. I'll tell you, like for us, again, my partner had to be on board, right? Because he's the one who has to deal with the baby who's not sleeping when mom's not there. Talk to my partner a lot. Again, if you think back to that idea of the love tank, right? How can I make sure he has what he needs? And how do I make sure I have what I need to leave the baby? Just kind of investing in your caregivers, I think, kind of gives you a little bit, can alleviate that anxiety. We also have recently been on like a sleep shaping journey, which is not necessarily something I would have ever thought I would do in the past, but I know some more postpartum doulas now. I'm learning a little bit more about infants and also just like how, the breastfeeding co-sleeping life works. But if your mental health is starting to suffer, maybe you can change it up. And so we've been doing some really working with a sleep coach again, and do it for me instead of doing it myself. We're working with a sleep coach who's helping us figure out how our baby should sleep better. If you have a postpartum doula in your area, that might be somebody to reach out to and say, hey, how can I help give this baby the ability to like sleep, an hour by themselves? That's already helped us a lot, I think. But as far as managing the anxiety as well, right? Take care of your own mental health. Throughout my whole doula journey, I've definitely had different courses of therapy, and there's been times where I've needed to go myself to like a therapist for more intensive periods of time, just to help think through some of these things. So what am I anxious for? Is that valid? Is it not valid? Do I just need to work on myself? So I don't know if that's helpful, but I can tell you they'll make it. Your baby's going to make it. I promise. It's going to be okay. It might not look quite the same as you would do it, but I would trust whoever is taking care of your baby and know that they're going to be okay. And again, I would reach out to your local people. Like our sleep coach is a local postpartum doula to me. She's been really phenomenal and helpful. And that's given us a lot of peace about me working overnights. Amy says, if I buy the workbook now, do you get the updates when I change it? Yes, you do. If you buy the book, you get lifetime updates. So again, the price is going to go up in October. It's definitely, if you're thinking about it, I would say buy it now at the $45. It's going to be more like 73 or so when I update it, because there's going to be new pages and that sort of thing. So buy it now and you do get updates. And another thing I wanted to mention to you guys, another way I can kind of offer like a done for you service, is that I do consultation calls with people. So if there's like any other question that you have for me that I didn't answer in this, or if you want to talk through like, hey, I've got this particular issue I'm facing. Again, I shared with you our experience and kind of in the last 9 years, what I've worked walked through, whether it's like working from home, working as a doula. We can do a quick consultation call. I try to make those just as in depth as I would do any sort of like prenatal with a client. So you kind of, again, you get my best for an hour, you get my childcare days, you get one of my hours on my childcare days, and we talk and go really in depth. And I send you follow-ups and then just resources. And so I've talked with doulas one-to-one over the last couple months, and these are some of the sort of the things we talk about. What ideas do you have for me? That's one of my skills, I think, is kind of helping people come up with a bunch of different ideas to solve one problem. And so maybe, it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall, but maybe one of the spaghettis will stick and that's your thing. So that's another option as well. Done for you with the workbook, or just talking through, like, it's helpful to have some investment in your business. So yeah. Are there any other questions? And again, you're very welcome to. I'm surprised this was 90. We're stuck like right at 9 o'clock. I'm surprised it was an hour, not only because I have a birth hangover, but also because my slides were like literally 75 pages long, and I went through them a lot quicker than I thought I would. So, any final questions or comments? You're welcome to unmute and share those. Yes, thank you. I also want to thank you guys for being here. I'm going to reshare some links. You're probably going to get this replay tomorrow because I'll have to process it and that sort of thing. But I'm going to send you all the resources we've talked about today. And a final thing I need to mention, again, our two special guests who I'm really sorry you couldn't hear. I will send you those videos. Darcy Sowers, who's here with us right now, which is so exciting, and Adriana Losada. I also want to shout out, go check out Darcy's website if you've not already. That's, again, I've been using her services as a done for you. She's got so many options for doulas, starting from some free resources to some paid resources. No matter where you are in your business, she's definitely can help you have more of a guide. And so I would highly recommend her services as well. There's just lots of, again, we're doulas, right? We like options. And so these are all of the options I can give. Yeah, and I will share this link to the workbook again. It's $45. You get the workbook and the Canva template, and hopefully that's just one thing that will help, alleviate the mental stress, and it's one less decision fatigue, I guess. Eliminate decision fatigue is one less decision you have to make. It's just done. You work on it once, and then you've got a plan moving forward. Yeah. And we talked about this at the start, but I'll mention it again as well. I'm so glad it was helpful. I also have a podcast. We're just loading you up with resources. We talked about this at the start of the class, but if you're new, I've got a podcast as well for doulas. That's another resource that might help you learn how to make this work for you. It's called the Doula Well podcast. You can search that on iTunes or Spotify, and that's really focused on skills. So I would love to have you guys think about listening to that and building your skill set just by talking to some other experts in that area. Yes. Hi. Yes, Shelby. Yeah.
Sorry. I have a question about the workbook. So I
Please.
purchased it and I love it. It's very great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. I was editing it and adding some additional pages, and then I tried to share it with a client, and I don't know how to do that. I'm not tech savvy enough. So how do I do that?
Oh, okay.
Is that like in the instructions or like a separate thing outside of this?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I mean, since we're here too, hold on, I'll just show you. You're talking about sharing it from Canva with a client?
Yes, because it would only let me share like one page at a time. And I was like, well, that'll be annoying if I'm sharing like 80 separate sheets.
Well, I will show here. You guys will get a come with me behind the screen, and I will show you what I do. So let me open up my so yeah, when I open up my Canva account, right, this is my Canva, I would click into that file. The way I share, this is like the version I use with my own clients. I usually do it by just downloading and sending a PDF, but I'm going to show you that option first, and then I'm going to see if I can replicate what you were experiencing. But when I hit download, you can either do standard, which is a smaller file, or print. But if we're just emailing, the file to people, I would say PDF standard, and then download, and then it's going to populate just as a PDF. But I'll show you the second way. You can just share the link to your actual Canva, like if you want to host it in the cloud and share it that way. And again, I'll give you guys a sneak peek. I didn't plan on sharing this today, but I'll tell you. So yeah, that's the PDF. One of the updates we're planning is I'm going to have a fillable PDF available for you, so you can like people could just get a PDF and like type in their answers or click their answers to it. So that's one of the things will be coming with the update. But also sharing, you would click anyone with the link can view. So click collaboration, anyone with link can view. And then if you hit copy link, I'm going to open this in an incognito window just to make sure it works, but this should work. That's a great question, Shelby. I'm glad you asked it. Yeah, so that would be like, they can't edit it, but they can see it. And it's as a Canva thing. Like if you wanted it hosted in the cloud, although again, you can download as a PDF and share it that way too. Does that answer your question, or is that not quite what you were looking for?
Yes, it does. I think I was downloading it as like a PNG instead of as a PDF, and then it was giving me only one page, and I was like,
yeah,
I'm not tech smart enough for this.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so either download as a PDF. Yeah, the PNG, it will just share, like it'll download all of them, those pages as an individual picture, or like if you however you select, but PDF or that share as, and you can just select the permissions of if you want them to be able to view it or edit it, but I usually like recommending the PDF. And then the other way would be, again, if you're a customer, you probably have gotten this email from me, but I can always resend it, like just printing it out as well. Some people get it professionally printed. Some people just print it or have clients print it on their printer. You can do that for them. So there's options, but.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks, Shelby. It's a good question. Well, yeah, any other questions? Like, this was so great. This was, even with our little tech hiccup, this went pretty well, you guys. So thanks for your time and hanging in here. And Leah, yes, I did a giveaway for a workbook, and we did choose a winner. It was Melanie Rose Birth Services. But yeah, I'll share the link for that workbook one more time. And just thank you guys. I hope you keep keep in touch. Like always, I'm like to be a resource for doulas. So please let me know if you have any questions or anything I can help you with or give guidance on. Like I said, we've got the workbook available, and I've got those consults available for people, whatever would help you in your journey. I'm happy to help. Thanks for your time, guys. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.